Indian Economic Development is a book where we are going to read both economic history as well as the participations, and the hard work that the economists, those who were there during independence, those who were there before independence, and those who are still there now presently, are continuously this hard effort or the hard work that they are continuously giving just to make our country come to a better position, just to make our country come to the limelight of development, right? So we are going to find out the struggles that our country have done, or the struggles that our country is doing and will be doing. What are the different type of policies or strategies that our government has undertaken for few these years after independence? What were the strategies before independence our government, our Indian government have used? How did the Britishers exploited our country? Whether they have given or whether they have done some positive impact on our Indian economy or not? These are the things that we are going to read. So it comprises of both history as well as the rate of participation and the strategies that are going on or followed nowadays, as well as the different policies and programs that have been undertaken by our Indian government presently to make our country a developed one. The entire Indian Economic Development book, I'm still repeating, the entire Indian Economic Development book is comprising of three parts. The first part is a pre-independence economic history. Pre-independence economic history. Number two is the development strategies as well as the history, economic history related during the time of independence. First part was pre-independence. Pre means previous to independence. Before independence. So before independence, we are going to read the strategies as well as the economic histories. The second part is during the time span of independence. What was the time span of independence during the 1940 to 1950? During this particular time span, when our national leaders were fighting to get our country, our motherland, free from the British clutches. During this time, what were the strategies and what was the condition of our Indian economy? We are going to read this one. And the third part will be post-independence era. Post-independence. That is after independence. What are the strategies that is present situation? What are the strategies our government has undertaken after 1947? What were the changes that we are finding in economic history now? What are the present strategies that our government is applying? As well as what are the different ways by which our country is moving on a path of achieving development? Right? We are going to read all these things in these three classification or three parts. Our first part that we are going to start today is the beginning. That is, the chapter is Indian economy on the eve of independence. Indian economy on the eve of independence. Now, Anushka might ask me a question, sir. Eve of independence means what? What do you understand by the word eve? EVE. I guess you have heard a word. This eve is very common word, right?
Yes,
Christmas Eve.
The
Fortnight. The fortnight or the midnight is known as the eve, right? Christmas Eve, when Jesus Christ was born, when Jesus was born, when the Christians actually play the carols during the time of 25th December, Christmas Eve, right? When we celebrate every time, every moment on the worshiping our Jesus Christ, it's the same. Here the word evening or the word eve means don't mean that it doesn't doesn't word that matches with the evening. It's basically a fortnight or a midnight. It is nothing but the time span. Just keep in your mind, eve refers here as era or time span. So Indian Independence Eve, that means what? During the time of independence, 1947 to 1950. It was a time span when our national leaders were fighting continuously to make our motherland completely independent and liberal country. I guess in the past days of your class 9, 10, 8, 9, 10 and all, you have went through the history very nicely. If you ask me, I was having my most favorite subject as history. I was fond of reading that particular one. As because it was filled of much more interesting stories, right? So history was interesting. Here also in this particular book also. I will try my level best to make this Indian economic development turn into a very, very interesting part. The first question of this chapter comes with, how have the Britishers exploited our Indian economy? Now, or, write a or, and go to the second line and write, let me see, the same, the two questions are same. You may also given a question from the board, you may also get, what was the condition of Indian economy in the pre-independence era? Or, how was the Indian economy exploited before independence? You may get these three questions, but the answer will be same what I am going to discuss now. Now, what was the question? In my question, I asked that how have the Indian economy been exploited by the Britishers? Means how have the Britishers exploited our Indian economy? It's a very common story that you read from class 7 to class
Hello,
8 or 9.
welcome to Skype call testing service. After the
Now,
beep, please record a message.
This particular 7 to 8 or 7 to 9 standard, you have read about Indian economy. Though you are having the world economy much more in your CBSE syllabus, but still we have read the Indian economy, in which you read that the Britishers have been arriving, or the Britishers have arrived in our country in approximately in 1757. It was approximately 1757. Though I cannot remember much the data, but still I can remember and reconcile that it was the time span when 1757 was the time or the era when the Britishers have been there in our country as the traders. They were the traders, those who wanted to trade with our motherland. By this way of trading, they fooled our emperors and the kings of then India. What they did was, they have got an opportunity to come here in our country. And after getting an opportunity to enter in our country, what they did, they tried to exploit all our resources. Why? As because they got a good smell of plentiful, valuable resources. Yes, of course. Our motherland, our India, is been bestowed with plentiful amount of resources throughout every state. If you go from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, if you go from the north to the south or from the east to the west, you will get each state with some specific varied characteristics. And all these characteristics make our Indian peninsula rich out of all the other developing and underdeveloped nations, right? So, the main moral of the story that we are going to read here is, how have the Indian economy been exploited? Now, how was the Indian economy exploited? There were few of the ways by which we'll understand this answer. Indian economy was exploited. Indian economy was exploited by those white settlers or by those British, by those white settlers or by those British in three basic manners. How have the Britishers exploited our nation or exploited our India, right? Now, those white settlers have exploited our country in three ways. The first way was, they have shattered our agriculture. They have reduced our agricultural base. India was an agrarian economy. I guess you all know. India was an agrarian economy. India is still an agrarian economy, right? So the colonial rulers exploited the Indian agricultural system. Our Indian economy is best with its agriculture. It is doing plentiful amount of variety of crops or the food grains throughout the entire country, and they are selling those to the nearby nations, right? So our majority of international trade, that is what I must say, an export income. Our export income comes from selling all those food grains to the nearby nation. We are the exporter of plentiful amount of wheat. We are the exporter of sugarcane. We are the exporter even rice. We are the exporter of many variety of spices as well. There are many fruits as well as there are many organic food items that we actually sell to the other nations. Previously, during the time or before independence, when the Britishers were ruling us, they have also got this smell of getting all this agricultural benefit from our country. What they did, they started to exploit the poor peasant tillers. The tillers of the land. Who are the tillers? The poor peasant farmers. Those who work in a land, or those who do not have the land of their own and work in others' land, is known as tillers of land. They literally exploited all those tillers continuously. How? They have, first of all, given very less wage for those workers to work. There was Teen Gatia system. In the Teen Gatia system, or in the this particular Teen Gatia system, which is very famous in histories, in the pages of history, Teen Gatia system was a time when we got Gandhiji to be working with his Swaraj movement as well as working with his national movement in our country, where Gandhiji was very famous in his this Champaran Satyagraha and all the Satyagraha. Right, I guess you can remember more than me. The Champaran, the Kheda Satyagraha, the Champaran Satyagraha, all the Satyagraha was being done by Gandhiji. In this time span, the Britishers have started a Teen Gatia system. You know what they did? They done a deal. With that deal, what they did was they started to gather the food grains or the surplus food grain that the poor peasant farmer have done in his own small piece of land or have done in others piece of land. They told that out of the entire piece of land, whatever piece of land you are having, out of that entire piece of land, the total land will be divided into three-fourth, means into four parts. Out of the four parts, three parts production, three parts output that would be generated had to be given to whom? To the Britishers. So this was what? This was a type of exploitation done to the particular poor farmers, the poor peasant farmers.
Yes, sir.
So they were bound to be exploited. And this exploitation was going in such an extent that we even found the zamindars, the maulwars, or the routwars even to exploit continuously the poor peasant farmers. They were charging a heavy amount of duties. They were charging a heavy amount of tax. They were overtaxing them. They were overburdening them with varieties of penalties and fines. And they were trying to exploit and extract all the resources from those poor farmers. This continued for a long while. This continued for a long, long while when the Britishers found that India's soil is best suitable for doing indigo cultivation. I guess in Bengali we call it as Nil Chash, right? So this indigo cultivation is very famous during the time of, or during the rule of Britishers. What happened during that time? The Britishers exploited our motherland. And with that exploitation, what they did, they thought India should be having the best place, or India is a best place from where they will be doing those raw production of indigo, and they'll be taking all those indigo directly to their own motherland. That what happened during that time. Most of the poor farmers were bound to produce all those type of indigo. They were being bound to cultivate those indigo, and there was a harsh treatment to them. And this harsh treatment had lasted for a long while, and India had loosened up the land's fertility. I guess you all know, if we actually cultivate indigo in our land, any piece of land, if you just try to make this cultivation indigo reduces the land fertility. How? It reduces the pH level of the soil. It reduces the pH level of the soil. If you plant indigo, it reduces the fertility and reduces the pH level of the soil. And if the land's pH or fertility level reduces, it makes the land somehow not permanently barren, but somehow apparently barren. So this apparently barren land was increasing in a lump sum amount in our entire country. Most of the pieces of land was going to be barren, and our Indian farmers has lost all their hopes. Why? As because they thought it's useless to do cultivation here in our country, as because they were not be getting any benefit, even not a surplus product that they were selling in abroad, they were not getting even the surplus payment out there. So they were being exploited in a very rapid and harsh manner. This continued for a long while. That's how the Indian agricultural system was being shattered, was being drowned by those Britishers in the time of, or before the independence era, or in the time of British era. I guess my point, how they have exploited the Indian agriculture, is clear to all of you. Exploited our industrial development, they have exploited our industrial base. Our Indian economy was famous for its handicraft products as well. Our Indian economy was very famous for its handicraft products. Handloom, handicraft was very famous in our country. India was famous for its metallurgical work. And throughout the world, India was recognized due to its metallurgical works. Right. I guess those who have visited the Sikkim, as I did the last year, so I went to Silk Route. So I guess you know Silk Road. You have already read in the pages of history. It was that trade route which was been connected or which was been made in the time of the Britishers, right? During the time of British rule, this Silk Road was made. It was not only during the time of British rule; it was the time of the Nawabs when they were there, when the emperors, kings, and the Mongol dynasty was there in our country. Silk Road was made. And it was only that trade route that was connecting our mother nation with the nearby neighboring countries like Bhutan, Nepal, and all, right? China and all, right? So during that time, our country was trading our spices as well as our country was very famous in making those metallurgical handmade products, what we call in Bengali Hostoshilpo. All those handmade products of the handloom industries was famous in our country. They were small cottage scale industries. And what they did, they tried to produce more and more as because they were being accepted wholeheartedly throughout the world economy. Each economy was appreciating our motherland due to its metallurgical activities. The Britishers somehow exploited and shattered that also. How? During the time of British rule, we used to make those metallurgical products, the handmade products, and we used to export them throughout the world. We used to export them throughout the world, and in this particular export, we used to earn something. That earning was very less. It was negligible during that particular time. Britishers didn't intervene in this manner. What they did, they tried to somehow charge more amount of export duty. That is, if a poor merchant or a poor trader here produces all those metallurgical work, all those handmade products or handicraft products, and if he wants, or if he or she wants to sell that in any of the foreign countries, if you sell them, you have to give those export duty. So you will be charged some extra export duty on that, right? So if you earn 100 rupees from them by selling your product from your home country, then you will only get 50 rupees in your pocket, and the rest 50 rupees goes in whose pocket? The Britishers' pocket. That's how they were exploiting our country. They were, second of all, they were also in very fear. Why? They were in fear that if all the Indian people will be starting doing all this type of metallurgical work, we won't be getting the poor laborers to work for making those particular indigo cultivation for us. So indigo cultivation required what? Number of labors. So India was during that time was having some deficiency of labors, those who will be willing to work for those indigo cultivation. So they were somehow closing all those handicraft products or handicraft industries, and they used to shut it down, and they used to take all those individuals, those who are working there, those who now becomes unemployed, they will be making them turn them into some indigo cultivators. That was the plan of the Britishers. That's how the entire industrial sector, which was just growing, which was a small scale industry and a cottage industry and was growing and was getting appreciation throughout the world economy, had now been shattered by the then Britishers. Our answer's third point will be they have not only shattered or they have not only overthrown our Indian agriculture, they have not only hampered or exploited our this industry. Even the colonial rulers, that is the imperialistic rulers, had done an imperial and colonial exploitation throughout our international trade. Now, my question to all of you, Asha sir and ma'am, what is international trade? Whenever we talk about international trade, we talk about two things. Remember, one is export, another is import. One
Import.
is export, another is import. When I sell my commodities, what I produce in my country to abroad, I earn from there. So export always comes forward with export earnings. And when I buy any commodity, or when we the Indians buy any commodity from foreign country, that is what import. And if I buy those foreign commodities from other countries here in our country, I need to do what? Payment for that. So
Import
export
payment.
brings earning and import goes with payment. Export brings earning and import goes with payment. That is how the international trade works. It was the same during the time of the British rule, even. Our mother nation or our country was very well known in trading the spices, in trading the steel products, in making iron, in trading the iron and steel, in even trading the food grains. Our India was very famous in jute making companies, in small jute handicraft products. It was even famous for metallurgical work. It was even famous for some fruits, and some of the items that was very famous in our country was the spices. Our India was blessed with plentiful variety of spices, and that what it attracted the Britishers. They had somehow shattered the entire international trade. How? Our international trade was shattered by the export duty. Just now, in the previous topic of discussion, also I have discussed about this. Export duty. Export duty means a type of taxation which will be charged on you if you sell your commodity to abroad. So if I sell some of the output that I produce in my country and sell them to abroad, then what I'll get? I'll earn something. But from there also, if I need to give some tax, then what will happen? My entire profit get reduced, my earnings get reduced. That was the main problem during that time, which was being understood. Even even the international trade was very poor, as because our country was not allowed to import some good amount of what I must say, capital goods. I guess capital goods, machines. So every industries can never work without machines. But during that time, there were some primitive machines that our India was importing from abroad. Why? As because India was lagging behind fund. Our government was not spending that, our Indian government, that is the Britishers, was not even spending a penny on our Indian economy. They were least cared about our Indian development. They was much more believers of getting what I must say, a hike in their own status. During that time, the amount of income or the amount of revenue that was generated by them was being spent on different other activities. Our India during that time was facing different miseries. Our that time, like the pandemic situation, what we are having now, there
Yes,
was not
sir. Hello,
pandemic during that
sir.
time. There was
Hello,
epidemic. There was
sir.
epidemic during that time.
Hello,
1 minute,
sir.
let me complete. Let me complete. So
Bolo, bolo.
this epidemic was being continued in our country. This was last topic of discussion that I'm doing now. So this epidemic was continued in our country. In the time of epidemic, our Indian people were getting misery. At that time, the Britishers was not helping us by giving us, by spending a bit of their revenue on us. That's how the Britishers exploited our country. So let's conclude the entire topic for our today's discussion and stop the class. There are three topics that you need to learn: that the Britishers or the colonial rulers exploited in our country or our Indian economy in three manners. They have shattered or they have exploited the Indian agriculture system. Number two, they have just shattered or they have exploited the industrial base of our country. Number three, international trade was also being exploited from our country. That's all for today's discussion. Hope to see you soon in my next class.
Hope you'll subscribe my video. If you like my video, please don't forget to share and give your thumbs up. Thank you. Have a very nice day.